All righty then. So welcome everybody. It's good to see everybody out here. You know, we got like Dave said, we got an action-packed agenda. ACT-IAC has had a great year so far. We had a great year this year. Had a lot of very successful events. We're here today to celebrate an associate's class that has graduated. You know, we're going to have some great speakers here today. You know, hopefully, I know everybody will get a lot out of the agenda today. Very excited about having this event for the members, the membership today. And we all hope you enjoy this evening and get to know each other and network and have a great time and celebrate the achievements that some, you know, our associates have taken on and really listen to the speakers and just have a good time. So thank you for attending today and good luck to everybody.
So now there's no holding me back because the mic actually works. So Margie Graves, our IAC chair, is like rushing here from her last meeting. And so we're going to press on and you'll get a chance to catch up with Margie later because the important thing is we got an action-packed agenda, but then there's also a reception afterwards. My apologies to those of you watching from afar because you won't get to do the reception with us, but you'll enjoy the meeting. But there is a reception and it's going to be right next door. I'll tell you more about that at the end because the most important thing will be to look for April Davis because April has the drink ticket. So she will be the most popular person at the ACT-IAC meeting today. It has been a really unusual year. And as I said, you know, after like almost 2 years of pandemic lockdowns and virtual this and virtual that, we were finally able to have a couple of in-person events this year with ELC Imagination ELC being a hybrid conference in person and now our membership meeting in person. And so a lot has happened this year and we'd like to sort of celebrate that with at our winter membership meeting. So we're going to roll a quick video and let her go.
In a world of rapid change and continuing uncertainty, ACT-IAC's outstanding volunteers and staff have accomplished so much this year, from important insights and ideas to compelling virtual content, while at the same time building back to a return to safe and engaging in-person activities.
Our communities of interest continue to produce cutting-edge research and discussion topics that are top of mind, such as emerging technology modernization, and zero trust.
We have significantly expanded the topics we've covered and the agencies in which we've engaged on the Federal Insight Exchanges this year. It's been an exciting time and a great opportunity to get engaged. We've also greatly increased the diversity of agencies that have gotten involved with ACT-IAC this year, expanding across the government. It's been an exciting year. ACT-IAC has found new ways to deliver our content to you, from our webinars, to our podcasts, to our monthly radio shows on Federal News Network. We're trying new ways all the time to reach you.
We launched 2 new working groups on climate change and supply chain risk management, as well as collaborating with GSA on Digital Transformation Summit and the Department of Energy on AI. We also created new external partnerships with the Partnership for Public Service, Merit Talk, the Center for Internet Security, and more.
This year saw the launch of a new spring conference on emerging technology innovation, as well as a return to this Imagination ELC 2021 in Hershey, Pennsylvania. We continue to make recognition of outstanding accomplishments a top priority with both our Innovation Awards program as well as our annual ACT-IAC Leadership Awards.
Our Institute of Innovation continues to take on systemic challenges with an eye towards the future. This year, we supported the transition to a new administration by offering crucial insights on outcomes, trust, customer experience, risk management, agility, and transforming infrastructure.
Our long-running professional development programs such as Partners, Voyagers, and Associates continue to set the bar for professional development and networking across our industry and government partnerships. And our Growth in Leadership for Women program, GLOW, continues to have enthusiastic support and participation. We continue to expand our reach with over 400 member companies, and we are increasing our diversity and our geographic presence across the nation.
this wouldn't be possible without you. It's your ideas, your dedication, your commitment to public service. That's the energy that makes ACT-IAC such a special place. And together, there's nothing we can't accomplish in the year ahead. Our mission is clear: accelerating government mission outcomes through collaboration, leadership, and education.
Woohoo! So this is really a moment to celebrate everything that all of you have done, because as you heard from the leadership team in the video, I mean, the magic of what makes ACT-IAC work is thousands of people like those of you in the room and watching today that commit time in addition to the really busy day jobs that you have to make a difference in the government marketplace. And so because this is sort of the tradition at our winter membership meeting, we're going to spend just a couple minutes more sort of reveling in the successes that you have accomplished this year. So if we could we'll just quickly roll through the slides for the sake of those here in the room and those watching from other locations. But our communities of interest remain a crucial part of the organization. 8 of them doing cutting edge work, always with government sponsors, always with a government champion and somebody who's willing to take the product and go make things happen with it. And you can see up there some of the reports and work products that we got done this year. I just can't say enough about the work of the thousands of active participants in our communities of interest. And our federal insight exchanges, which you're going to hear about several times a day, is really a growth business for us in ACT-IAC. It was only a few years ago that they were just very nascent idea, and now we have 14 agencies covered with this idea about if you could meet with industry leaders and engage about what are their top priorities, how to help inform upcoming procurement vehicles and initiatives that will all be better off. And so the Federal Insight Exchanges have just done tremendous work this year. And you'll hear more from Anne Marie Johnson about that, our champion on the executive committee for that work as we go forward. On the next slide, but wait, there's more, as they say. You heard in the video about some of the special projects that we've launched. We've launched a climate change working group to focus on technology adoption within government to address climate change issues. We've added a cybersecurity supply chain risk management acquisition working group at the request of GSA, OMB, and CISA to help partner with the government community of practice to bring industry ideas into that crucial supply chain work that's going on. And we did our innovation awards, and we had so many really cool ideas, and they get presented at the May conference. Which was virtual last year, but will be in person. So mark it on your calendars next May in Cambridge, Maryland. Back to the old days of some ACT-IAC events that used to take place there, and it'll be in person, and I think you'll really enjoy it. Next slide, please. We had a great year for events. We had content all year long, and I just can't say enough about how the team transitioned seamlessly from first to a virtual only world and then back from a virtual to a hybrid world, which is like the top level of complexity, because that has all of the work of doing the virtual event plus all the work of doing the in-person event and doing the virtual event from a hotel instead of from the safety of your your server room or wherever you're doing it from. And so those are some of the events we did. And the professional development classes did not miss a beat. I just can't say enough about the professional development team. I would like shout outs to every one of the ACT-IAC staff, but we're going to save that for a few more minutes because it's just important, crucial work to make the collaboration continue to happen, even as we sort of went through the months of having to do everything virtually. And we'll be graduating an associate's class with us today as we go on. The Growth of Leadership in Women is a really cool program. If you haven't gotten involved with that yet, we're doing a couple cohorts a year. There's great, everybody who's taken it has really enjoyed it. So I highly recommend it to you. And we created the GAP program, the sort of the peer group to fellows for the graduates of the associates program. So, you guys will be charter members of GAP as you graduate today. Next slide. We've worked hard on increasing partnerships to help expand our reach and provide additional amplifying chambers. And you saw it in the video, so I won't duplicate what the video said, but it's really powerful. We added to the mix this year. We not only continued the Shared Services Leadership Summit with a Shared Services Leadership Coalition, we did a partnership with the Partnership for Public Service, and we also added the Cyber Summit, and we took over presenting the US Cyber Challenge Awards this year, which was great. We've got a monthly radio show. If you don't catch it on Federal News Network, you can get it on demand from their website. We also have a podcast series that has new episodes virtually weekly. So check those out. They're great ways to stay in touch. The most important thing I will say to you today is, since you're here, I'm sure you already get it, but if you don't get the daily news flash, like send us an email, because that's the way you'll stay in touch. That's the way you'll know what's coming up and what you can plug into, because we get requests throughout the year. The Office of Federal Procurement Policy comes to us and says, hey, we'd really like some support about ideas about the CPARS past performance system, or GSA comes to us and says, we want lessons learned on FedRAMP. And those things all get announced in the newsflash. So if you don't get the newsflash, sign up for it. If your friends and teammates don't get the newsflash, sign them up for it. We will not spam you. Just once in the morning, let you know what's going on in the organization. And webinars, even despite the fact that we're returning to person, we've gotten such great feedback about the webinars that we will continue to do those as part of the portfolio of work that ACT-IAC does going forward. And we produced 60 of those this year. And then last but not least, I say to you all today on the next slide, there we go, that the association is in good shape, that we've ended the year strong on a financial footing and putting ourselves well into the future. And so the association is in good hands. And of course, those good hands start with the outstanding professional staff at ACT-IAC. And I could have shouted out like their names throughout that entire talk, because every one of those bullets up there has somebody from the staff that is like dedicated to making that go. And so if you would just join me, if I could say for the professional staff, if you would stand and everybody could just like thank them for their service, because they have worked hard this year. And I appreciate you clapping loudly, because some of them are out of the hallway still registering people, and so they're delighted you're here too. There really is a lot to be happy about. It's been a great year. It's been an unusual year, and our hope is that you will hang with us as we go into the new year. Our hope is that as people continue to get vaccinated, that maybe by the time we get to spring, we'll be able to do more and more in-person events. And at the end of the meeting tonight, we'll show you what's coming up on the calendar so you can make sure you don't miss out on a single thing. But with that, we have a lot more to take care of tonight. And so now I think it's my honor to invite to the stage Harrison and Anne Marie, who are going to make a special presentation. Come on down.
So you think we ought to bring a very special lady up here?
I think that's a good idea.
Let's do that. Could we please welcome Soraya Correa to join us up here, please?
While she's making her way up here, I really appreciate the, I'm not sure what we call the crowns and the glasses, but it's good stuff. I like it. I like it. I'm going to say nice things about you for a little bit. So.
Gosh, this is such a treat. Ah, okay. Oops. Do we do a coin toss as to who goes
I'll go
first?
first.
Or do you
It's
wanna
all right.
go
I'll go first.
You
All
wanna
right with you?
All right. Yeah.
Okay.
This is where they're going to roast me.
This is where we might roast you, but you got to scooch
Come on
this
up
way
here,
so I
don't
can
run
look
far.
at you. Right there we go. For those of you who don't know, my name is Harrison Smith. I met Soraya Correa back in 2005 in November. And that was when she came to be over at Office of Procurement Operations as the HCA there. And I was a relative newbie in the procurement field. I had just come from the Naval Sea Systems Command. And shortly thereafter, she assigned one of my many nicknames, most of which are inappropriate and not fit for public consumption, just to let you know that part. So I can't say all the nice things about you, right, Soraya? But my first and most precise memory of Soraya was at the end of the fiscal year, I think in year 3 or so of my time working under her tutelage. I got into a space where I had made what I thought was an absolutely atrocious and awful and irredeemable error. And I knew nothing else to do than to trot up to her office and say, I messed up. I think I used more colorful words than that, but I messed up. And she paused and she said something, a string of sentences that told me a lot about Soraya. She paused, she pursed her lips, and she said, I appreciate you coming so quickly. Bad news doesn't get better with age, so thank you for coming so quickly. And she also said, we can fix that. I know you're working hard. I know there's a lot going on. I know you're stressed out. It's the end of the fiscal year. I appreciate what you're doing. We can fix that. It'll be okay. And I think my blood pressure went from like 170 to 120 or something like that at that point. And then she said, please keep doing what you're doing because it's really important for the mission. And that told me 3 things. It told me she cared about me as a person. It told me that she wanted that transparency and that honesty and that quickness. And it told me that the most important thing frequently comes last in these conversations, and it was the mission. And so over the years, we worked on PACs together. We worked on standing up the Enterprise Acquisitions Division, overhauling performance commitments. And she was very, very consistent in this space. But I also started to see some other things. She really had a sincere desire to bring industry partners into the day-to-day fabric of the operation. She wanted to have that conversation. She wanted to have that transparency, frankly, with them. One of my favorite ones was, why are you asking for proposals back on a Friday? Are you going to work on them over the weekend? And frequently the contracting officer, which was sometimes me, would go, then give them the weekend. These are people, right? They're trying to do things. They're trying to support the mission. Again, the most important thing, they're trying to support the mission as best they can, and we need to get there with them. You made a slight departure, right, out of procurement. Came back in as the senior procurement executive over all of DHS. And I think I was there a couple weeks or a couple months before you were. And I'll never forget what Dan Clever told me and Tim Shaughnessy. He said, gentlemen, Soraya Cray is coming back, and you better get your track shoes on. Which to me showed not only an accurate representation of who Soraya is, like she likes to get things done, but also the respect that Dan and Tim Shaughnessy and many of us, some in the room and many not in the room, share for you, Soraya. We worked through a lot of enhancement of that formal engagement, strategic industry conversations, reverse industry days, acquisition innovation roundtables, the procurement innovation lab. Full disclosure, I have stolen and copied many of these things in past years. But about 5 years ago, I came into the office that was right down the hall from where I sat, and I said, Soraya, I need to talk to you about something. I'm accepting a job offer at the Internal Revenue Service. And she stopped, and she pursed her lips, and she said, we're going to miss you here. You're doing a lot of really important work. I really appreciate you coming and talking to me so I didn't hear about it from somebody else. And I'm excited that you get to go see another aspect of the government mission. And so it's exciting now from a slightly different perspective to see you, someone who cares about the mission and cares about the industry and cares about the people that make up this place, to take on a new role within ACT-IAC and along with the other things that you're doing. But it's really, really exciting. She cares about the people, cares about the person. She values that transparency that we are all about here at ACT-IAC. And it is all about the mission. Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon. I'm Anne Marie Johnson, and it is such an honor to speak as the industry representative to honor you, Soraya. Soraya Correa epitomizes what it means to be a team player and what I like to call Team USA. The concept of Team USA came from the FAR Part 1 guiding principles that says acquisition is a team activity. It includes both government and industry. I like to think of acquisition as in the context of sports, and government and industry are on the same team with distinct positions on the field, and yet we all work together to score for our nation. I'd like to share a story about Soraya's impact on the ACT-IAC Federal Insight Exchange program. In 2018, I led the DHS team. This new contract vehicle called Flashy Eagle was on the horizon. Everybody wanted to know all about it. Well, they gave it a more professional name. Flashy Eagle is really fun though. And it was Eagle Next Gen. And so I reached out to Soraya and I said, well, would you and your team be willing to come speak at a Federal Insight Exchange event? And she said, yes, I would, but the time isn't quite right now, but it's just right around the corner. I said, okay. Well, that was the year of the government shutdown, 35 days. And so we waited. Meanwhile, industry got together a long list of questions that we had about the procurement. Jackie Rubino and her team, Soraya's team, took that list of questions. They took 100% control over developing the panel flow and answering the questions. And sometimes the answer was simply, We don't have an answer, but we'll let you know as soon as we do. And if you're on the industry side, is that a good answer for you? Yeah, right? So with her participation, Soraya and the amazing team that she had, the gravitas of the Federal Insight Exchange program went up significantly because we got a lot of answers to questions out for industry that had not come out in any other mechanism before. Soraya may have retired from government, but she did not retire from Team USA. Soraya is now, as you've heard, a senior advisor to ACT-IAC, and with Soraya in an industry position on Team USA, the best is yet to come. And now, Harrison.
We get to present the Accelerating Government ACT-IAC Award to Soraya in grateful recognition of the many contributions you have made to ACT-IAC.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
No, this all you.
Please.
I will be brief, I promise, because I'm no longer talking for the government. No, just kidding. First of all, thank you all. Thank you very much for honoring me today. Thank you, Harrison and Anne Marie. I can't think of two greater people to present this award to me. I think the world of both of them. And what Harrison didn't tell you is that when he told me he was going to IRS, I did let out a few expletives in Spanish, but I did say, hey man, it's your career. And we've kept in touch over the years, and I couldn't be prouder of him for the work that he's doing at the IRS, but also for having the fortitude and the courage to walk away from a job that was actually very good for him to go to something better and develop it and grow it. So very proud of you, Harrison. Thank you for what you're doing for our government. And Anne Marie, it goes without saying, I have the utmost respect for you. I could talk about you all day, but I do want to talk about ACT-IAC a minute. I've been involved with ACT-IAC probably through most of my federal government career. And it has always been a privilege to be a part of this organization because I believe in industry and government working together. I'm passionate about it. I stood up a lot of forums at DHS to encourage it. And even today, I still continue to encourage it. In fact, they had strategic industry conversation earlier this week, and I was very proud of them for continuing that tradition. And I look forward to them continuing those traditions and leading the way in ensuring that we include you as part of the solution, because you are a part of the solution. Our industry partners are critical to the success of our government. And I think now more than ever, we need that partnership. So I will continue to champion that until I don't have a voice anymore, because I firmly believe in my government. After 40 years, it was difficult leaving, but it was time, the time was right, and I still have an opportunity to do so much more from an industry side. So again, thank you for this great honor, this great privilege. I'm excited to be a part of the ACT-IAC team as a senior advisor. I'm not sure what great advice I can give, but we'll see how that goes. But in the meantime, thank you all for honoring me. It's a privilege, it's an honor, and I look forward to working with all of you.
Hello again. And now in my role as the chair of the Federal Insight Exchange Program, I have the great pleasure of introducing the next item on our agenda. The Federal Insight Exchange Program provides a forum for substantive engagement between government and industry. We provide programs, projects, and podcasts where government and industry can communicate to deliver the outcomes that matter to our nation and our people. We have grown to 14 teams. If you are interested in joining a team or leading a team that is not on the website now, please reach out to either April or myself. We have a FIE playbook and a culture of mentoring and helping each other to be very successful. And it is that collaboration, along with the superlative support from April Davis and the rest of the professional staff, that has resulted in the outcomes that Dave shared earlier. Today's event is brought to you by the Veterans Affairs team, which is led by Alex Lunsford of Microsoft. Today's program champions are Patty Lito with the Huron Consulting Group, and also Kelly Wenner with Adobe. Our guest speaker for our fireside chat today is Paul Brubaker, who is the Deputy Chief Information Officer at the Department of Veterans Affairs. Please join me in welcoming our speakers to the stage for a fireside chat.
Where's the fire?
Oh, we go over this side. All right.
They won't let us burn. Open burn in here.
Thank you, Marie. Good afternoon, everybody. Nice to meet you guys. I'm Patty Lito with Huron Consulting Group. I know quite a few of you here, and I'm pretty sure all of you guys know Paul Brubaker. So I'm pretty excited about that. I'm with Huron Consulting. I'm actually a Navy mother. My son is in the Navy, so I actually wear lots of Navy swag as well as my mask earlier. And I'm the daughter of a Navy fighter pilot. So I take an active interest in the VA success. I really want us to take care of them. So I'm very excited to be a part of this program today. Getting to know Paul Brubaker better. I'm actually honored to call him a friend. He and I go way back to Cisco days. So that was just a few years back. For those of you guys who don't know him, I was going to read his bio, but look, 18 pages long. So I figure you guys can Google him or see me later and I'll go through this whole thing with you. No problem. Paul's title is actually a lot more. It's Acting Principal, Deputy Assistant Secretary for Information and Technology and Deputy Chief Information Officer. So he's quite the title. And I know from years of experience, he's been in government, he's been in the industry, and everything he's done, he's always left like a really excellent mark. So it's my honor today to bring in my friend, Paul Brubaker.
Thanks, Patty.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. Don't be too impressed by 18 pages. It's, somebody rambled on, and I assure you it wasn't me.
It's a
So,
lot, don't worry.
and it might go back to like my days as a short order cook at a truck stop at the Days Inn in Austintown, Ohio. But I've always tried to
I didn't see
get
that
out
on
of my
here.
memory.
There's a lot of good stuff.
Yeah. Anyway, it's a pleasure to be here.
Well, thanks. So we're going to take turns asking some questions. We're going to keep it informal, and then we're going to be taking some questions at the end. So first one, big one for us that we've been thinking about is the pandemic. Of course, it's had a huge impact on everyone here, but especially at the VA. So tell us about how you were able to grow and transform during this period. And I know you did a lot, like rolled up your sleeves and got a lot done.
Yeah. So it's funny. A lot of people, particularly outside the Beltway, who look at government and look at how government operates, like to make it a target for criticism. I will tell you, probably one of the most impressive things I've ever seen in my entire career, that's both industry and government, was the response to the pandemic. It proved that government can be nimble, it can be agile, it can be swift, and we can do a whole lot with very little. It taught us that we can do the impossible, things that people don't think they can do. And I'll give you a couple of prime examples. One is, in the middle of the pandemic, we were given a hospital by the Baylor White Medical System in Garland, Texas. They donated an entire hospital to the VA. But we had, in order to take title, we had to get it up and running in 2 weeks. And anybody who's ever provisioned a circuit or tried to install wireless in a federal facility know that 2 weeks is really difficult. We were able, with our industry partners, to get together and deploy full functionality to that site, including redundant circuits, in 13 days. It's normally a 90 to 120 day process. And I got to tell you, we wouldn't have done it without our industry partners. I'd love to name them, but the lawyers get a little excited. So much for FAR Part 1. They get a little excited when I give kudos to folks. But I got to tell you, it was amazing. And then just to convert the entire organization into having the capacity to telework. 400,000 employees, many of whom have never teleworked before, over the span of about a 3-week period, we were able to get the VPNs in place. We were able to get the proper equipment in place. We were able to get the necessary infrastructure in place. And then to stay ahead of demand, when we brought on literally tens of thousands of new contract nurses and healthcare providers and people in the field. And we were setting up mobile clinics, and we activated something called the Fourth Mission, which, and not many people are aware of this, but the VA has a public health mission in times of natural disasters or national emergencies. Well, this was clearly a national emergency. We converted the Brooklyn VA Medical Center into a COVID facility that served the public. People aren't aware of that. We set up mobile drive-in testing clinics. This has been well documented. A lot of state veterans hospitals and nursing homes asked for our assistance, and we were able to get the technology provisioned, get the integration done to provide healthcare to folks in those environments. That was not an inconsequential task. It was a 24/7 endeavor. I had just, again, back to the resume, I just left my job as a Deputy Assistant Secretary for Energy, doing cybersecurity for energy delivery systems. On a Friday, Monday, I walk in and they say, you're going to run the Scrum teams for our entire COVID response. And we organized Scrum teams around critical functions that had to come together, whether it was acquisition, whether it was development, whether it was infrastructure, whether it was end user operations, whether it was help desk, whether it was particularly around acquisition and strategic sourcing. We had, and communications, we had these specific lines, and every day we met twice a day, had action plans. I mean, we organized like I've never seen a government organization organize before. It used to take us anywhere from 14, 15 days to get a new employee up and running, credentialed, get the certificates, get the equipment provisioned. By the time we got into our groove, after about the 2-3 month period from, I would say around June, it was taking us less than 3 days.
That's incredible.
So yeah, it was amazing. It was an amazing experience. And I'm really proud of everybody who contributed, and many of whom are in this room because you got phone calls and delivered, and brought us needed equipment and made sure it showed up configured and ready to go. So thank you for that.
Thank you. So one of the things we like to do at the FIEs is share good news stories. And if that isn't a good news story, I don't know what else
Yeah,
is.
that was
So,
very good.
You know, we
Thank you.
do like to talk about the good things that are happening within the agency. So it's fantastic that you came here. So what are some of the lessons learned that you've had? I know you were kind of new into the job when all this happened. So what are some of the lessons learned?
That level of emergency response is unsustainable. But it was amazing, and it taught us what we can do. There is a tendency to revert back to old behavior sometimes, and I think the thing that's got me most concerned is that we don't capture those lessons. We don't look for ways to change standard operating systems or create standard operational processes. The good news is everybody recognizes just how good it was and how effective that was. And there's a demand right now to capture those lessons learned. In fact, yesterday, we were just talking about having the historian document our COVID response across the enterprise, because I think it's a lesson, I think it'll be studied. And I think the lessons that we learned are going to be really valuable to helping us accelerate our path to digital transformation writ large.
I mean, I know we have that fear, right, of things going back. I know when pandemic started, we all probably thought it was going to be 2 weeks. And then it turned out to be 2 years. So do you think 2 years of doing things a new way is enough to ingrain it as now that's the new way going forward?
Yeah, I think the pace is one thing. The operational procedures and processes are another. I think we will institutionalize so many of those processes, but I don't think we can sustain the pace without a lot more people. And we're falling back into the typical, budget issues. And I will say, one of the things that made that work was, almost $2 billion getting thrown at the operation just to go off and do it. And it wasn't thrown willy-nilly. It was all spent. I would stand up to the way we spent it as being not just responsible, but hyper responsible. We were hyper diligent to make sure that every dime that went out the door had a COVID nexus, a documented COVID nexus, but we had to do it quickly. But we did it. And now we're in the situation where we're operating under a CR through February 7th or February 8th. And that is not conducive to the type of transformation that everybody says they want. And we're not going to be able to deliver on if we go back to those typical processes, particularly as it relates to our stakeholders on the Hill. As much as I love and adore them, because back to the resume, worked on Capitol Hill, worked in the Senate for a number of years, and it's kind of home in a way. But yeah, they've got to decide if they want to legislate or spend time, posturing.
Well, I think we'll all look forward to hearing some of those lessons learned that come documented.
So going forward, speaking of, we're in December now, we've got a whole new year coming up ahead of us. Outside of continuing resolution and getting through that and 3/4 of the new fiscal year, what are the priorities going on for you and for the VA this coming year?
Yeah, it stems from the lessons that we learned from COVID, really. It's can we accelerate our deployment of a 21st century infrastructure that is required to move the kind of high bandwidth applications that we're going to see more and more of, particularly in the health space in the 21st century. I heard an interesting statistic the other day, so it absolutely has to be true, but that 90% of all data created since the history of mankind was created in the last 2 years. And that trend think about that. And that trend is supposed to continue. And you can thank IPv6, you could thank high resolution imagery. There's a whole host of reasons for it. The explosion of digital endpoints, sensors, and it's just going to continue for the unforeseeable future, because if you think about IPv6 and 10 to the 36 addressable spaces, it's almost infinite, right?
Yeah.
So everything's is going to have more and more things are going to have addressable spaces. They're going to be nodes on the network. It's going to create new security issues, but it's also going to create this data management issue and this networking issue. I used to work at Cisco, and I will tell you, any networking company, that's kind of an interesting business to be in right now, because these networks are just going to get more and more critical to the functioning of organizations. Cloud's going to be more and more critical. Edge computing is going to be more and more critical, just because of the amount of ones and zeros that have to move and the data that has to move. And then you get into this whole notion of how do you extract value quickly out of data. And we're wrestling with that as a department right now. Some people, and they're right, some people are kind of laser focused on, oh, this is great, because now we can answer these key analytical questions that we have before us about how we manage, how we inform decision making. But there's a whole host of applications that will be at and beyond the horizon that will boggle your imagination in terms of the capability that they're going to bring to a lot of different federal missions, not just healthcare, not just benefits delivery, but national security and intelligence, Department of Homeland Security, TSA, I mean, you name it, Department of Education. We're going to soon be equipped with capability that will allow us to perform mission in ways that were unimaginable a decade ago. And it's exciting.
That is exciting.
So tell us a little bit about your approach to IT investment, management, and technical debt.
Okay.
I know is a big thing within the VA.
Yeah. So this is where we get in the hot tub time machine and we go back to 1996 and the Klinger-Cohen Act, which was the only good idea I think I've ever had, and I'm sticking to it. Learned one thing a long time ago, and it's IT investment management. And I think it's important, and I'm as passionate about it today as I was when I was 11, when I worked on that legislation. So I'm a big fan of OMB Circular A130, A11, A123. I know this is from the Get a Life department, but there's really good guidance that are in those OMB circulars in an OMB direction. And it requires basically capital plan investment control. And I'll summarize just to say that major investments should have business cases that are supported with data that create a measurable return on investment, an ROI. So I'm going to slap a Silicon Valley 21st century approach to that old legislation and that guidance and say, there's this whole movement around something called objectives and key results, OKRs. So this guy, John Doerr, wrote a book called Measure What Matters. There are hundreds of books about OKRs out there. There's even, and this truly is from the Get a Life department, my favorite podcast is the OKR podcast. But it's really about setting high level goals for your organization. What are those fewest most important objectives that matter to your organization? And make those your objectives. Don't have 50 of them, have like 3. And develop a number of key measures where you know what success looks like. And these could be measures, they're outcome driven measures. It's not measuring activity. It's things like, how do we, well, to use a Dave Winogrenism, how do we delight our customers, right? What does that look like? How do I measure that? How do I know when I've succeeded at delighting my customer? And frame your key results in that framework. And there's a ton of literature out there on it. We are instituting that at the VA right now, and working with our and I also love architecture. So so we're working on co-creating future state architectures with our components, or the operating administration staff offices throughout the VA. And we're facilitating these conversations around these objectives and key results and how are we going to measure success. And then we're going to align our IT around those measures, particularly new investments. We're going to be looking at how we focus our digital transformation efforts around moving the needle on those measures that they told us were important, those key results that they want, and just be focused on that. Because this game. I mean, everybody who's been in and out of government knows this game, that everything is a priority, therefore nothing is a priority, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm a firm believer that if we can work with our business partners in our organization with a absolute focused commitment on improving life outcomes for veterans as our North Star, we're going to be able to do some amazing things, because it's going to focus the organization and all the resources and assets of that organization on that objective. And we're going to decide how we're going to measure it. And then we're going to go dent the universe, because that's what it's all about.
That's great for your investment. What about the technical debt aspect?
Well, see, this is how we're going to address the technical debt, because those key results, if you do a value stream analysis, you'll figure out really quickly that you're not going to be able to deliver on those key results without addressing that technical debt. But we want to address our technical debt in a defensible way, in a rational way, in a way that is clearly linked to those deliverables, those outcome deliverables that we want to achieve. So that means taking a look at the infrastructure that touches the applications that are required to meet those measures. So we're in the process right now. Again, I said I love architecture. We are mapping pretty much everything in the department in terms of we're in the middle of a network assessment right now. Mm-hmm. We're just undertaking a critical examination of everything we do, from applications to cloud to infrastructure, and working really hard to address that technical debt. We have a technical debt bucket that we've more or less thrown any legacy or any area that we know is weak in our network and we're cooking that stew, but the only things that are going to come out of there and make the cut for investment are things that are on that value stream. So that's how we're addressing it. And by the way, we're creating a whole IT investment structure where we're rationalizing our investments in a way that are directly tied to the functional operations of our organization. So it used to be, if anybody who's ever looked at our budget in the congressional budget justification or any of the
Pages
documentation.
more than your.
Yes.
Yeah, they have
Yeah.
a very big IT budget. I can say.
Good luck with the traceability.
Mhm.
So we're trying to reframe all of that right now as we speak. And we're going to succeed in doing that. We've given ourselves 2 years to make that happen because we got to be realistic that that these things take time and that mapping those traditional budget lines and establishing a new process, a new framework, and then being able to parse data in a way that meets the various reporting needs of the agency is really critical. So we're looking to build out a framework. We've been briefing this through the IT Investment Council, which I chair, and then there's an IT Investment Board, which is chaired by the CIO, the Chief Acquisition Officer, and the Chief Financial Officer. They're co-chair, the three of them are co-chaired, and that's out of FATARA as a requirement. CIO chairs it, the other two are co-chairs. But we've got the three players at the table. I mean, and I got to tell you, I love it because the vision was years ago that those would be like the three key players at the decision table, advising the secretary and the deputy secretary on the future direction, the strategic direction, and how the tactics would support the strategy. And at the VA, we've finally done it. And they get along and they like each other. No, we got a new player coming in. We got a new player coming in, Kurt Delbenny, who is our CIO nominee, who had his confirmation hearing yesterday. And I think well, we're all nerds, right? We're all governors. We love this stuff. Go watch his testimony. It was amazing because it was all about IT investments and prioritization and technical debt and infrastructure and EHRM and how are you going to, and it was brilliant. And I just know that I know he's going to be a great addition to the three-legged stool that we've set up. So I'm excited. I think it's going to be really cool. And Kurt's background is amazing. He is he's a former president of a division of Microsoft. He's Mr. Office 365.
Right.
So,
Very good.
you know, when again, I'm still in the hot tub time machine. When I think about the position description we wrote in the report language about what a federal CIO, agency CIO should look like, it was Kurt Delbenny. I mean,
Really?
it's really, that was the background that we were looking for. Somebody who was well-versed in, you know, the wily ways of the private sector, who could come in and perform that service.
That's
and
incredible.
I'm really grateful just in hearing the way he speaks about it. I think he's a kindred spirit and we're going to have a ball.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, we're grateful he took or was willing to take the job.
Yep.
Because it's not an easy one.
No, it's not.
So he got confirmed. He's all good.
No,
Not
he's
yet.
got to go through, the committee's got to vote him out. He's got to
Okay.
be, so I said, I should preface all that. If there are any reporters in the room, what I meant to say, you want to add this little phrase,
Right.
if confirmed, before any of my comments.
Yes.
So there you go.
Great. So what is up with EHR? I'm all about the veterans' health and taking care of them. And I know EHR has been
Yeah.
top of mind for
Yeah.
years and years. So
Yeah.
what's the latest on that?
So we undertook a 12-week strategic review of the program. We went, it almost reminded me of the process that we used back a long time ago when we drafted this computer chaos report, where we looked at all the writings that have been, you know, anything positive or negative about the project or program, any of the strategic reviews that have been done, any of the IG reports, all this stuff, looked at the basic fundamental structure, some of the organizing documents around it, and really kind of rethought how would we approach this if we had license to really kind of revisit the fundamentals. So undertook the strategic review, new deputy secretary came in, wanted to sort of really get under the hood on all of the work that had been done, and did that. And then just recently announced a new organizational structure that will bring together the disparate parts with an emphasis on the integration function between OIT, the functional champion, which is the customer, VHA, and then we've been supporting, again, back to the architecture stuff, we've been supporting an in-depth understanding of the critical clinical workflows that need to be understood in order to automate the patient record, system. And we've looked at a lot of different ways to be successful. And I think you're going to see it evolve over time. I think we're going to get out of the gate here pretty well over the course of the next 3 or 4 weeks, and then you're going to see some further refinement. You're going to see some little different structure than you've seen in the past.
Good. I'm excited about that.
Yep.
Well, I know based on your opening comments, right, that industry has done a lot to help the VA with the pandemic. And of course, that's what ACT-IAC is all about, is getting industry and government to work together. So my question to you is, how can industry help with your FY22 and beyond?
Yeah, so industry's already been a big help. I think a lot of it's on our end. Really, we've established an office of strategic sourcing to really get a lot more consistent with what Anne Marie was referring to, the concept that we're truly partners. Because I don't think the VA has a particularly good track record of treating its vendor community like true partners. Some we do. If you're an incumbent, it's easier. But the way we identify, the way we get ahead of what we need to in terms of introducing emerging technologies, bringing new ideas to the table, it's a little bureaucratic, it's a little cumbersome, it's a little painful. And we've got a lot of, how do I want to say this? Is there press in the room? Is there any press in the room? Right. Exactly.
There's a hybrid component.
Okay, no worries. Well, I would say this anyway. I just want to know if I'm going to swear or not. No, I think there's like this strange, I'm not getting it, because Dave and I, several of us have lived through this, sort of the golden era of communication in the 90s and the early 2000s, when we could speak freely and, you'd invite people in and we'd have this free dialogue. And I sensed the chilling effect, not just when I came to the VA, but when I was at the Department of Transportation. It seems like there are a number of people in the Office of General Counsel, there are a number of people in the acquisition community who would have us all believe that there's a whole wing out in Leavenworth filled with former federal employees in orange jumpsuits. I don't know. I only remember like maybe 20 or 30 people who getting into serious trouble, and it's all Title 18 violations, which is really bad stuff. But for the most part, we're honest and ethical people on both sides of this table. Yeah, there's exceptions, but there's exceptions in every industry. And I think we've got to figure out how to open up that aperture of communication and be a little less retentive about, you can fill in the first word, because we are wound tight. And I got to tell you, I don't think it's serving anybody well. I think we're winding up paying more for stuff that I think we put you guys through a lot of garbage when it comes to, springing last minute stuff on you, abusing the RFI process, right before the RFI process. We don't, and I think a lot of it has to do with the fact you don't have many people who've been in industry back in government who understand what a BNP budget is and how the decision-making processes work on your side of the equation. And then we also have this stupid practice of, can you imagine if you went out and bought a Toyota, if like Ford sued you?
Yeah.
It's just, bid protests to me are anathema to good judgment, sound judgment, good decision-making. It's just silly. And I know, we've got an obligation to be fair because we're playing with taxpayer dollars, but the reality is it's just silly. And don't get me started on FedRAMP, because I got a whole point of view on FedRAMP.
We don't have a question on that. So
Yeah, anyway, and I don't want to get sideways.
I was going to
Senator
ask
Peters,
you,
but-
it gets complicated for you, doesn't it? Vendors calling all the time. I've got the greatest product to help you, and I do too, and you do, and you do, everybody else. So you've got to weed through all that too,
Yeah.
to find what's really going to work and
Well,
integrate with
so
what you have.
couple of things around that. we designed this intake process. We're supposed to dump everything into the Office of Strategic Sourcing, and their follow-up record is not that great. They're understaffed, and it's not fair to you guys. It's not fair to us. So, you know, and then the other piece that I'm very excited about this because we're about to stand up an innovation cell, which, you know, is really designed to accelerate the introduction and the velocity of from identification to piloting to scale to testing to scaling of innovative technologies out there that's being run by our CTO office, Charles Worthington. We need to do a better job.
So the last one is, we kind of touched on this a little bit. Any new information on funding and the CR?
Yeah.
Other than February 18th.
Other than February, hopefully.
I wish I could tell you, well, we're good till February, what, 8th now, or
That was 18th, but.
yeah. Anyway, no, I don't have any new information except to say that the secretary testified, I want to say 2 weeks ago, that a year-long CR, which seems to be in the rumor mill, would be devastating to the department. And we're not the only ones. So I think the Hill's starting to hear that. They're starting to respond to that. We've had a couple of offline briefings with the Senate and House Appropriations Committee to just sort of get into specifics on why a year-long CR would not be good for not just the digital transformation goals of the department, but from our veteran service goals. I mean, fundamentally, it would be bad. We'd be worse off than we were during COVID, and we don't want to take a step back.
Now it is time to open up questions from the audience or for those that are online as well. And so I think
Some question in the back
with a microphone. There's a hand raised back there.
Hello, I'm Simone Manello. I work for Zscaler. Paul, I actually think I know the answer now because we went on a long tangent, but if you could.
Oh, Simone, I'm having trouble hearing you.
Yeah, can you stand up and talk a little louder?
That's the first time I've heard that. So I'm Simone Manello. I work for Zscaler. I think I know the answer to this question.
Is this, it's better be the different question than at the other conference. So you got you got a new one?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Simone's always good at asking questions. And she's not a plant.
I can't stop talking. So if you could pen another piece of, or another successful act to move IT and procurement forward, what would it be? Or what would it include?
Well, wouldn't have FedRAMP in it. I think it would just be a restatement of the fundamental principles that we laid down before. I think we would accommodate, I think the Hill needs to accommodate for some of the modern development practices that we see. But I think those are easily accommodated in a piece of legislation. Not everything is a major program the way it used to be. We do a lot more. And if you go back to even, some of the concepts around Klinger Cohen, we used to call it, modular acquisition. I think there's ways to work in agile concepts to development, but it would still focus, it would have a relentless focus on measurable improvements in mission and operational outcomes. And I think we're due for another piece of legislation. I think if you went back, the scary thing to me right now is to think about this. I don't think there's anybody in this room who remembers the days of the Brooks Act and the mother may I exercise. You had to go, oh, yeah. I see a couple of people that do. I will not name names to protect the young. But the Brooks Act was very cumbersome, you had to go to the General Services Administration, beg for a delegation of procurement authority if you wanted to buy anything related to technology. It was bad. It was very cumbersome, very antiquated, old system. So we got rid of that. And Cohen had always said, this is not to be a memorial. Like the Klinger Cohen Act was not designed to be like a 30-year law, like the Brooks Act wound up being. And guess what? It's coming up on 30 years. So it's really time, like I said, I started that when I was 11, but it's really time to rethink and to get creative and put some great minds at the table and figure out, a new model to manage information technology acquisitions. And I do hope, though, that there's a way to improve communication between government and industry, because that's got to happen. And right after the act, it was great. Like, it just seemed like there was a golden decade where the lines of communication were open. People were bringing really innovative technology to the table. We got through Y2K because of that. There were a lot of really cool things that happened. Dave was able to shepherd in an MCI, even though that program, took some criticism. It was really innovative. And we'll talk about being able to retire technical debt. I'm not sure you could do something that bold and innovative today and be successful. Heck, we have trouble getting commercial applications into the cloud. Wonder why that is. Anyway.
Any other questions? Right here?
Oh, and I'd outlaw bid protests.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah, that too. We tried to do that a couple of times.
Hi, my name is Andrew DeBraccio. One of the things throughout your entire talk that you kept throwing out wonderful agile buzzwords. Me as an agilist, I was getting so excited. Scrums, lessons learned, transparency, measurable results. Is there anything you see for your organization that you can continue to do better, or is there a practice that you want to improve?
No, we're really good at everything. No areas of improvement. And by the way, my answer to that last question was my personal point of view. It does not reflect the department. Now, the answer to this question, I think there's a lot of stuff we can do better. And this is what I love about the organization. I think everybody from top to bottom is always looking to continually improve. And one of the areas that we're really looking at is our approach to DevSecOps and how we build out this software factory. And we're going out and we're looking at best practices across industry. We're not just limiting it to government organizations, trying to figure out, like, how can we be more responsive? How can we be more incremental in our approach? How can we get to the point where, leading and bleeding edge organizations are, where they'll disrupt their own network just to see how well they respond to it, or their own applications, just see how well they can break fix. That's where we want to be. And I think the leadership in the organization is committed to accelerating the journey to get there. The weird thing is that, we've got there's really great stuff going on, and it gets overshadowed sometimes by some of the legacy stuff that is utterly nonsensical, but you can't boil the ocean. Like, you can't fix all this at the same time. So occasionally something will pop up that makes all of us look bad, but it's so, like, not how we operate. And it's hard to convey that, but yeah, I think there's a lot of room for improvement, and I think everybody's committed. We're looking forward to, getting a permanent CIO in position and, setting the cadence, setting the clock, setting those relationships. Yeah, the partnerships with with not just the operating administration staff offices, but also with the veteran service organizations and the veterans themselves is an area that we're really focused on, and, we're beginning to institutionalize human-centered design and really focusing in on how do we get friction out of this experience? Because I go out to VAMCs all the time. I was doing it during COVID. Shh, don't tell anybody. I was,
You went somewhere.
yes, I was vaccinated, but it always breaks my heart when I see a veteran having to carry around a stack of their records, their service records. It just breaks my heart. Shouldn't have to do that. And I sometimes will go and I'll listen to the interaction of a veteran with somebody doing check-in or intake, and just to hear kind of their experience. And we need to do much, much, much more of that. We need to really staple ourselves to that veteran experience and understand how they interact. And I got to tell you, the Board of Veterans Appeals does a good job of that. But, you know, I look at their backlog, I look at the VBA backlog. There's just so much stuff we could be doing and should be doing and have to do to reduce the friction of interacting with the department among veterans.
Yeah.
You know, I think we're pretty good at it, but there's much more that we can do.
What can we do? What can government do? I mean, excuse me, industry do? We got a room full of BDers, whatever. And, you know, we talked about the innovation cell that's getting stood up soon.
So, okay, this might tick people off, but apply for jobs with the VA. We want to hire. Simone remembers this from yes.
I've looked into that. It's difficult.
Yeah. You got to be either hyper dedicated to the mission or utterly incompetent to make it through that gauntlet.
Yeah.
We're focused on stay tuned on this because there's some talk about a
veterans even say
human-centered design. Yes, it is very difficult. Well aware of it. Back to the architecture, got to document you know, the as is and the current state, but so we can co-create that lean, agile future state for the hiring process. For now, we do have open recs where we can do continual hiring. We just have to get through this CR because we're about to pull the trigger on some hiring. And I was all excited when, you know, I went to Hershey because we thought we were going to get an appropriation that was going to allow us to hire people in really quickly against an open rec. If the funding stabilizes, again, back to the secretary's comments about why the CR is bad, if we can get that appropriation, there are 500 new positions in OI&T just waiting to be filled. Not to mention, you know, whatever it trits out. And we are ready to hire. We're ready to pull the trigger on it.
I think that'd be interesting. Don't you guys think, like, to be on the other side, having people calling us, hey, I'm so with this company.
I would love more.
Wouldn't it be fun?
I would love more people on the bus that have consultative sales experience, to be completely blunt about it, because so much of what we do is empathetic listening. It's really kind of understanding what our customers are trying to do and shape requirements that way, as opposed to, you know, your processing speed. Like, we don't care about that stuff anymore. What we really care about are those outcomes and really understanding how things impact the veterans' lives. Yes, sir.
Hi there, Kehan Mubagari with API. Sorry, a little bit of feedback. I was wondering if the VA has any programs to attract recent college graduates or folks who are maybe a few years out of school to come and support the mission.
Yeah, we do. Actually, there are a number of programs. I will say that we also have a program that, unfortunately, because of the CR, we had 49 positions dedicated to an intern program where we were going to bring people in, you know, entry-level jobs. If they work, you know, we can extend those. We had we committed to do that. I think you probably heard Jerry Conley talking about this from a government-wide perspective, because I know he's really interested in shoring up internships. But you can't will the ends without willing the means. We got to have the money to do that. And the CR is not helping. It's setting us back because we had committed through our governance process to 49 positions and we're can't get them funded. No new starts. Yep.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yes, on behalf of ACT-IAC and everybody.
I will tell you, he did tell us he didn't have anything planned after this, so hopefully he'll stay around, maybe.
Yes, well,
if
everybody
you want to grab him for a question, because I do want to turn it over to Dave as we have more to cover.
And I'll have to let the staff know that these talking points were really helpful.
That was. I'll add that to my file with your bio.
Please thank them all.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Dave.
So yeah, so if you don't have a full dance club, we know how busy your life is, Paul, but we have a couple more things. We got a graduation to do in a couple minutes, and then we're gonna have a reception next door. We'd love it if you could stick around and join us. Tiffany and Josh are up next. It is testimonial time. You know, you can hear from me that great things are going on, but you expect me to say that to you, but we love it when the people who are actually doing the stuff come and talk about how great things are. So come on up.
Good afternoon or evening, I guess, at this point, right? Get going here. So first of all, I want to say thank you to our 2021 leadership team. You know, they guided us with the new normal. And of course, my partner Tiffany and our fantastic pod named Teal 7. And if you want to know where we came up with that name, come talk to us later.
Yep.
So for a lot of you, for your final, when you were in the partners program, some of you were, I'm sure. We had to kind of go over, hey, what did we learn? What did we think about the program? So I'm going to share a couple of my thoughts. So the first thing was we all had to adjust in multiple ways in our personal and our professional lives over the 2 years now, almost. And the partner program provided insights on the skills and tools on adapting and leading in this rapidly changing environment. And then communication and collaboration. The Partners Program provided additional tools and understanding on how to better communicate and foster an environment of collaboration. Teamwork, whether it was our breakfast program or our great breakouts or any of the activities that we did on Zoom. And all of the industry and government partners programs showed incredible teamwork and really supported each other as we went through the program. Informative. The Partners Program provided key and relevant information, whether it was our DISC assessment, speed of trust, ECQs, or all of the fantastic leadership speakers that we had come in. And for me, it provided a lot of those, hey, I'm going to use that in my day-to-day. So those were great. And then the last, one of the other things is like, I just put awesome because when I started the program, I had a little bit of a trepidation. I was like, what am I getting into? This is a lot of work. There's a lot of stuff going on here. But with the remarkable partners, pods, and leadership, it was really just a really awesome experience. And luckily we got to do some of it face-to-face, which was nice. And then finally, it was like to be continued. I personally plan to stay in touch with my partner and the rest of our class. And I'm sure Leslie, there she is. She's going to, be happy to hear that I'm already working on my pledge for, the next 3 years. So I already have more mentoring people. I'm here and we're going to bring in a lot more people from USCIS. So I really enjoyed my time there. So I'm going to turn it over to my partner, Tiffany.
Absolutely. Josh touched on a lot of great points. And if I could just add, the Partners Program, I mean, we, as Josh mentioned, I was partnered with a phenomenal leader and a great group of leaders in both industry and government. And, from the start, Leslie encouraged us to get out of our comfort zone, right? And that taught me so much courage. So I am forever grateful for Leslie. She's like our mom and and taskmaster. That's Josh. But the leadership team provided a safe place for healthy collaboration. And I think we need that in both industry and government. And more importantly, we went through the speed of trust exercise. And I'm just gonna read a few things really quickly here. But I now compare the speed of trust to my stock portfolio. If we nurture our everything in our portfolio, we'll experience increased stakeholder value, accelerated growth, opportunities to enhance innovation, meaningful partnerships, better execution, and heightened loyalty. We improved our ability to, more importantly, understand how to solve problems by understanding all aspects of the business. So this includes acquisition strategy. Many of us didn't understand all of the government's pain points with dealing with acquisition, right? Government mandates, a lot of us, again, didn't understand. And I think they touched on it earlier. So, and more importantly, diversity, equity, and inclusion. So during the time that we were going through the Partners Program, you heard a lot about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and we got a chance to learn about it firsthand. And lastly, often we as leaders, both industry and government, we see things through one lens, right? So the Partners Program gave us an opportunity to see things through multiple lenses. And I think ultimately we realized that we are humans, we're not robots, and we're certainly not aliens. And we need one another to support the mission and further the goals. Thank you.
So you heard it from recent graduates. The room is literally full of past graduates of the Partners Program. For over 20 years, it's just been the key leadership development program that ACT-IAC offers. And applications are open now. So you have an opportunity to be part of the next class and be a future fellow yourself. Let your teammates know. It's a highly competitive process, but the more applicants, the better. We'll get a great class, a great cohort going. And now, without further ado, it's time for the grand finale of the membership meeting. And so I'd like to invite Jeremy and Suda up on stage.
Good evening, everybody. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Sudha Venkateshwaran. I'm with CollaboraLink. I'm very, very thrilled, along with Jeremy, to introduce and celebrate the class of 2021 associates class. Jeremy?
Yeah, my name is Jeremy Wood. I'm with Millennium Challenge Corporation, and like Suda, I was a partner in 2018. I dragged her into the associates program to help me out. And today we just have the distinct honor to be with this class as they graduate. And there's a couple of things I want to talk to you about the program in case you're not familiar with it. So at its core, the associates program is a professional development program for early career professionals from both government and industry. And that program asks for a 10-month commitment from both the associate themselves and from the organization they work for. And that joint commitment is instrumental in making sure that this professional development is worthwhile to both parties, both their business that they work for, the organization they work for, and themselves. So during this program, they'll have an opportunity to learn, connect with mentors, engage in public speaking, attend events led by senior leaders in both in industry and government, subject matter experts from across government and industry, learn about their personal brand, build relationships with peers, and then get more involved in the community. So before Suda tells you more about what they did this year, I'm going to introduce our associates leadership team from 2021. So it's my privilege to work with many of them. I've known many of them for a while. We drafted some more partners from our 2018 cohort. For our government vice chairs, we have Sheena Burrell from National Archives and Records Administration. We have Miguel Adams from the Millennium Challenge Corporation. Those were both our vice chairs for government. For industry, we have Wendy Myers from LMI, Alec Gorzo from Decode, and Shaq actually is here today. Shaq McCants from Seven Sense Consulting. Not pictured here and instrumental into the program were both Chelsea and Foster and Leslie Berry. They are the key that makes everything work. If you've been in any of the leadership development programs, you know them very well. So Suda, back to you.
Thank you very much, Jeremy. As you all know, it only counts when you have real numbers to go with it. So by the numbers, when we started the associates program, we didn't expect to be fully virtual this year as well. However, as the world continued to evolve in our new normal, our rising group of leaders rose to the challenge, showing agility, adaptability, and willingness to continue investing in their relationships with their class members and with the rest of the program graduates. They showed up for a full day, after a full day of virtual work, for a full day or a full session of virtual networking and growing and learning with their associates. Over the last 10 months, this associates class has dedicated over 35 hours to classroom learning, all virtual, unfortunately. But our sessions were very exciting, and we covered key topics such as leadership style, mentoring, negotiation, public speaking, and bid, no bid. To make these great sessions happen, we had guest speakers, both from industry and government. We had interactions with the 2021 partners class, so thank you very much, Leslie. And then over 15 senior leaders from the fellow community who volunteer their time to speak, mentor, support sessions, and provide detail on either the COIs or how to get involved and how they can make the most of their engagement. In addition to our learning sessions, this is the third year that the associates took on the federal case study programs. Their projects were continued and done in partnership with the ACT-IAC communities of interest. And the quality of thought and effort that went into these were exceptional. Jeremy and I were part of all the presentations, and we are very honored to learn from you all. The associates, along with their leaders and coaches, figured out their project focus, the manner and the mode of their presentation and how they would engage. Sometimes there were presentations, sometimes there were case studies along with the COIs. We are all so impressed as a leadership team with your achievements throughout the program. Partner COIs, thank you so much for your willingness to mentor and grow our young leaders. One of my favorite parts of the ACT-IAC is, of course, the emphasis on service. This year, thanks to our associates and along with their service committees, we partnered with the Capital Area Food Bank. It's an organization focused on making a difference in the community through equitable access to food. The associates also raised money that was donated for Food for Others, which allowed our fully virtual participants to be part of the social service. And finally, and mostly fun, the social aspect. This year, our associates social committee took the pandemic as a challenge to be creative. We planned 2 in-person and fantastic socially distant events, remote-based events that were both enjoyable and increased the overall class relationship. Jeremy and I are very, very proud to be part of this class. The future is very, very bright in federal IT. Congratulations, team. Video. Can you please start?
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Miguel Adams. I am the coach for the 2021 Associates class. I served as the team coach for the acquisition of vendors team. The team partnered with the acquisition community of interest on a case study dealing with the cybersecurity maturity model certification. To speak a bit more about the project, I'd like to introduce the team member, Timothy Robinson.
For our project, the Acquisition of Ventures developed a white paper examining the Department of Defense's Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification, or CMMC as it's more commonly known. In it, we examined how the ever-increasing number of cyber attacks, along with the rapid adoption of evolving and new technologies by cyber criminals, contributed to DoD developing a unified set of security processes and practices designed to enhance the security and reliability of the entire DoD supply chain. We discussed how the model is structured and key changes that were made from CMMC 1.0 to 2.0, and we dug into how both industry and government will be impacted. For industry, we discussed what will be required from a planning, infrastructure, and cost perspective. For government, we discussed the impact of cybersecurity on federal supply chain risk management and the government's critical systems. We also go over DoD's implementation of CMMC, as well as how other agencies are beginning to incorporate elements of CMMC into their own contracts. Finally, we provided some key takeaways, which included: 1, industry should benefit overall from changes of CMMC 1.0 to 2.0 due to streamlined standards and assessments and more flexibility. 2, companies should prepare to put the necessary processes and infrastructure in place in order to be eligible to bid on future requirements. 3, with CMMC 2.0, DoD has a clearer path forward for full CMMC implementation. And 4, other agencies will implement similar standards to DoD's CMMC.
And thank you. It's now a pleasure to introduce and announce the graduates from the 2021 Acquisition of Vendors team. Amanda Parker, Benjamin Marks, Christina Wolf, and Timothy Robinson.
My name is Shakara Shack McCants, and I am a vice chair and coach for the 2021 Associates class. I served as the team coach to the Change Agents team. This year, the Change Agents team partnered with the Customer Experience Community of Interest on a case study on the topic of addressing CX preparedness in an emergency. To speak a bit more about the project, I'd like to introduce Danielle Danike.
The Change Agents FedTech case study project involved updating the customer experience COI's playbook with the most recent legislation and policy guidance. We also proposed a new play that addresses CX preparedness in an emergency or national crisis and included more recent case studies that supported our new play. Our learning objectives were to develop an understanding of the policy guidance that directs CX practices within the FedTech industry and utilize that understanding to identify gaps or opportunities for improvement within federal organizations. As a result of our research, the main takeaway was that federal agencies need to shift their mindset to prioritize the customer on a regular basis. Agencies must think about innovation ahead of time in order to succeed in CX and gain customer trust so that their services excel whether there is or isn't a crisis. We saw that government agencies are slowly starting to talk about and prioritize CX practices, but they must give full focus on improving the customer experience in order to increase the value and impact of their services.
Thank you, Danielle. It is now my pleasure to announce the graduates from the Change Agents team, which consisted of Ana Sofia Garcia Vara, Casey Acosta, Danielle Danicke, Jillian Steigman, and Peter Steele.
Good afternoon. My name is Alvin Garza, and I'm a vice chair and coach for the 2021 Associates class. I served as the team coach to the Emerging Technology Squad. This year, the Emerging Technology Squad partnered with the Emerging Technology Community of Interest on a case study on the topic of quantum. To speak a bit more about the project, I'd like to introduce Lauren Mcallister.
Hi, I'm Lauren with the Emerging Tech Squad. So when we first got together, there were many topics on the table for us to dive into. So after much deliberation, we eventually chose to focus on quantum computing. We did this because a lot of us were really interested in the topic and we didn't really have that much experience in it, so we wanted to learn more. So we had a lot of research to do since, like I said, none of us had experience with quantum before, and we all had an interest in learning about it. So in particular, we were interested in the risks and benefit of quantum computing and how it will affect the federal landscape in the coming years. So for our project, we chose to organize a panel of experts in the field of quantum and hold the panel during one of the emerging technology COI meetings. So this task kind of involved a few things. So finding speakers to participate on the panel, reaching out to the speakers and organizing logistics, preparing questions for the speakers, and creating a slide deck for the panel. So the two speakers we ended up securing for the panel were Dr. Travis Humble and Gabe Chang. Although we didn't get to ask all of our prepared questions to our panelists, we did get a fair amount of them answered, and we had a really great discussion with the panelists. They were fantastic, really smart, unique individuals, and we even received some questions from the audience as well during our time there. And it was so well received by the COI that there's actually a quantum COI being created to continue the conversation.
Thank you, Lauren. It is now my pleasure to announce the graduates from the Emerging Technology Squad. Elias Ishak, Jeremiah Akabahan, Kim Vandenberg, Laura Mcallister, Lindsay Knockowitz, and Nate Parker. Congratulations, team.
Good afternoon. My name is Wendy Myers, and I'm a coach for the 2021 Associates class. I served as the team coach to the same but different team. The team chose this name to reflect the fact that while government agencies are still charged with doing the same activities to recruit, hire, onboard, and engage their employees, they're having to do it differently than they have in the past. This year, the same but different team partnered with the Evolving the Workforce Community of Interest on a panel presentation focused on the candidate experience in the virtual age. I'm really proud of the work this team did to plan and execute a stellar panel discussion on a really important topic that both industry and government organizations are facing as they continue to evolve and mature their hiring practices and processes in a remote and hybrid work environment. To speak a little bit more about the project, I'd like to introduce Matt Dodson.
Hello, my name is Matt Dodson. I'm with the group Same But Different, working with the Evolving the Workforce Community of Interest through ACT-IAC Associates 2021. And our case study was a panel brought to the Evolving the Workforce COI revolving around virtual hiring in a completely digital landscape. So focusing on the pandemic in 2020, sending the majority of the workforce to a work from home environment where virtual interviews, virtual hiring has become the norm instead of something that's maybe an exception. We had 4 panelists from both government and industry, providing perspectives from the hiring process as far as being hiring managers and recruiters, as well as from the candidate perspective, having been onboarded during a fully virtual hiring process. Some of the topics that were covered included actually leveraging the virtual landscape, using it to your advantage instead of just listing off challenges, or how you've adapted to the challenges, key differences in the interviews versus, maybe a hiring manager's approach to a virtual interview or a candidate's approach to a virtual interview on camera, on phones, things like that. The needs of onboarding changing during virtual hiring, how that affects candidate experience and productivity and operations from a hiring perspective, as well as potential changes as we see a shift once again from fully remote to maybe a hybrid situation, certain companies having a hand in each or being, binary, one or the other. So that was, the main takeaway, and what we hope to accomplish was sharing with this group something that they can bring to their hiring process to strengthen their capabilities in this continually remote landscape that we're working in.
Thank you, Matt. It's now my pleasure to announce the graduates from the Same But Different team. Claire Chamberlain, Matt Dodson, Anna Greer, Sarah Gordon, and Tanya Sullivan.
Mashina Barrow, and I am a government vice chair for the 2021 associates class. I served as the team coach for the Internet Explorers team. This year, the team partnered with the IT Management and Modernization Community of Interest on a case study on the topic of identity credentialing and access management. To speak a bit more about the project, I'd like to introduce Jordan Saltakis.
The Internet Explorers Group produced a white paper on identity, credential, and access management, ICAM, technologies by examining case studies from domestic and foreign government entities. ICAM technologies are at the forefront of technical evolution, with accuracy, security, and convenience forming the pillars of successful implementation. Investigating how these entities accomplished ICAM transformation and modernization allowed us to understand the challenges, approaches, and value-based results they experienced. While focusing on the applicability to U.S. government organizations, we studied 3 domestic entities and 2 foreign entities. We provided lessons learned and best practices on ICAM technologies to offer insights for the successful implementation of ICAM by our government stakeholders. Common lessons learned and best practices included the importance of safeguarding user data and privacy, using pilot programs for incremental implementation, strategies for continual improvement, and how to increase infrastructure capabilities successfully.
Thank you, Jordan. It is now my pleasure to introduce and announce the graduates from the Internet Explorers team: Jordan Saltakis, Kyle Carrick, Mary O'Connor, Omid Mahaban, Virginia Mattingly.
Thank you so much for your encouragement, and the ACT-IAC membership, your sponsoring organization, and every one of the single associates should be collectively proud of your accomplishments. Jim?
So just one thing to leave you with: this should not be the end of your journey, right? It was the end of just this one piece of your journey. And we really encourage you to get involved with GAP. We encourage you to get involved with the COIs that you worked with, as well as others that may interest you. And continue your professional development. Don't let this be the end of that. We're looking forward to seeing what you do in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, it has been an action-packed membership meeting, and we are like 30 seconds from the end and on to our reception. But I do have 2 things that are really important that I do want to do really quick. And one is, it's been a fabulous year for new members coming and joining ACT-IAC, and we're thrilled with all of the new member companies that have come be part of this great, vibrant organization. You see them before you on the screen today. There are so many companies that I can't possibly take the time to read them all to you, but I encourage you to take a look for them and look for folks who are here tonight or from new member companies. Share with them your experiences and why you find so much value as part of the organization. This is slide 1, but wait, there's more. Here's slide 2. And so please welcome all the new member companies. And then one last slide to show you, there's more to come. And so stay involved. You've already heard about great connectivity through communities of interest, federal insight exchanges, the Institute for Innovation, the professional development programs, and here are just some of the events coming up. So mark your calendars. We've got our big in-person conference in May at Cambridge, Maryland, the Emerging Tech and Innovation Conference. Of course, Imagination ELC will be back in person again in Hershey next fall. And with that, thank you all so much for being a part of ACT-IAC. Thank you all so much for all of your great successes this year. There is a reception next door, and April has drink tickets. So she'll be the most popular person there. But she wanted me to let you know that she's not the only person with drink tickets. So find an ACT-IAC staff member. They'll help you get a drink. Enjoy your evening. Happy holidays.